My daughter said I wasn't her real dad and chose her stepfather instead. So I cut her off and used her wedding fund to buy myself a Rolls Royce. Now she's losing her mind because her real dad won't pay, and she's demanding I sell my car. Not happening. Hello Reddit I plus here. I never thought I'd see the day my own daughter would look me in the eye and say, "You're not my real dad," but here we are. And the kicker? I didn't cry, I didn't beg, and I didn't break. Instead, I disowned her, cashed out her wedding fund, and bought myself a brand new Rolls Royce Ghost, midnight silver, black leather interior, a literal dream. And now she's spiraling because her so-called real dad won't spend a dime, and she's demanding I sell my car to pay for her fairy tale wedding. Let me rewind. My name's Robert. I'm 54 years old, and I've been a single father for most of my life. My daughter, Sophie, now 24, was my entire world from the day she was born. Her mother, Linda, and I split when Sophie was 7. Ugly divorce, lawyers involved, the whole circus. But through it all, I made sure Sophie never felt abandoned. I paid every child support check on time, never missed a school recital, showed up to every basketball game, held her when she cried after her first breakup, taught her to drive in my old pickup. She was the center of my universe. Then, when Sophie was 10, Linda remarried a guy named Gerald. On the surface, Gerald seemed okay, polite, hardworking, not some sleazeball. Honestly, I was relieved. I thought, good, at least there's another adult around who cares about Sophie. I was naive. It started small. She'd come home from her mom's and say, "Dad, Gerald took me to the zoo," or "Dad, Gerald helped me with math homework." No problem. But then, one day, she casually called me Robert. When I asked why, she shrugged and said, "It's just easier. I have 2 dads now." That cut deep. As she grew older, Sophie pulled away. Less time with me, more excuses about helping mom or spending time with Gerald. He started showing up at her events, the ones that used to be just ours, and every time she'd run to him first, introduce him as her dad, while I stood in the background like a family friend. I raised concerns with Linda, but she waved me off. She's old enough to decide for herself who she connects with. By the time Sophie hit high school, I was a visitor in her life. She listed Gerald as her father on official forms. At graduation, she had him sit front row while I was shoved into general seating. I swallowed it all, telling myself, as long as she's happy, I'll endure it. Fast forward, Sophie meets a guy in college, Nathan. Decent kid, hardworking, respectful. They got engaged last winter. When she called me, I was ecstatic. I told her about the $50,000 wedding fund I'd been building since she was a toddler. Silence. Then she said, "Actually, Robert, Gerald's paying for the wedding. He's my real dad. And it's a father's job to pay for his daughter's big day." Those words crushed me. Real dad. After everything I'd done, all I'd sacrificed, she reduced me to a sperm donor. I hung up the phone, sat in my empty house, and realized I had been erased. If Gerald was her real dad, then let him be. Let him foot the bill. Let him handle the father of the bride duties. I wasn't going to compete anymore. I called my lawyer, removed Sophie from my will and life insurance, dissolved the wedding fund, and transferred the money back into my accounts. And for once in my life I thought, why not do something just for me? I'd always driven practical cars. Hondas, Toyotas, reliable, nothing flashy. But I'd dreamed of owning a luxury car for years. So I walked into a dealership and bought myself a Rolls Royce Ghost. Cash. Midnight silver, black leather, starlight roof. $130,000. Worth every penny. When I drove it off the lot for the first time in decades, I felt free. Words spread fast. Linda called me screaming, "You're being vindictive. You're ruining Sophie's wedding." "No," I told her calmly. "Her real dad can pay. Not my responsibility anymore." My parents were divided. Mom begged me to reconsider. Dad said, "Son, it's about time you stopped being her doormat." My brother actually cheered me on. But Sophie? She ignored me for weeks, until the bills hit. Turns out Gerald's big contribution was $10,000. Barely enough to cover a venue deposit. Sophie's dream wedding was north of $60,000. She applied for loans, asked Nathan's parents, even set up a GoFundMe that barely cracked a few $100. Finally, the phone rang. "Dad, Robert, we need to talk." She begged, she pleaded, she cried, said Gerald didn't have the money, said I was being cruel, said I was ruining her life. I told her straight, "You made your choice. You chose Gerald as your real father. Let him pay." A week later, Sophie showed up at my house while I was washing the Ghost. Her jaw dropped. "Is that a Rolls Royce?" "Yep," I said, smiling. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Her face twisted in fury. "You spent my wedding fund on a car?" "No. I spent my money on a car. You don't have a wedding fund, remember? Your real father is supposed to provide that. She exploded, screamed, cried, accused me of being heartless. At one point, she even said, "Fine, you want me to call you Dad? Dad, please, sell the car and help me." It was hollow, forced, like a child trading candy for toys. I told her, love isn't bargaining. You don't get to erase me for years and then suddenly want me back when you need money. She stormed off, shouting she'd never forgive me. Here's the kicker. Last week, Gerald himself called me. Said he never wanted this. That he loved Sophie, sure, but never intended to replace me. He admitted he couldn't afford the wedding and that Sophie was pressuring him, throwing around the phrase, real fathers pay for their daughters. I told him flat, you wanted the title, Gerald. Now you've got the responsibilities. He looked exhausted. And for the first time, I think he realized what I'd been living with for over a decade. The wedding is 3 months away. Sophie's still scrambling, Gerald's wallet is staying closed, and Nathan looks like he's aging a year every week. As for me, I polish my Rolls every Sunday, take it to car meets, and drive it with the top execs at my firm. I've never been happier. Sophie texted me yesterday. I hope that car keeps you warm when you're old and alone. I laughed. You know what keeps me warm? Self-respect. People might say I'm heartless, that I should have been the bigger man. But here's the truth. Unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional disrespect. Being a father doesn't mean being an ATM. Sophie chose Gerald. All I did was respect her choice. If she doesn't like the consequences, maybe next time she'll think twice before erasing the man who raised her. And as for me, I'll be taking the ghost out for a drive this weekend. Windows down, music up, heart unburdened. So remember how Sophie thought Gerald, her real dad, was going to fund her dream $60,000 wedding? Well, reality finally caught up. 3 months out, she realized Gerald's wallet wasn't a bottomless pit. The man makes a decent living, but he's not sitting on 6 figures in disposable cash. He told Sophie he'd already stretched himself thin, giving her $10,000, and wasn't going to refinance his house for a wedding. Cue meltdown. It started small. Linda, my ex, called me with her sweet voice, the one she only pulls out when she wants something. Robert, I know you and Sophie aren't seeing eye to eye, but this is her wedding. It's supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Can't you just help for her? I laughed. Her real father is supposed to handle it, remember? Not me, click. Then came my sister, Janet, who has always played peacemaker. She sat me down over coffee. Rob, she's your only daughter. Don't you want to walk her down the aisle? Don't you want to be part of her memories? Janet, I said. She already told me Gerald is walking her down. She already erased me from her forms, her graduation, her life. She made her bed. Janet shook her head like I was the villain in this fairy tale. 2 months out, Sophie tried a new tactic, emotional blackmail. She showed up crying at my office, holding an old photo album I'd made when she was little. Pictures of me teaching her to ride a bike, taking her to Disney, holding her on Christmas morning. Dad, she whispered, please, I know I hurt you, but I was just a kid. I didn't mean it. Can't we start over? Just help me with this wedding, and we can rebuild. For a split second, my heart almost softened. But then I noticed her fiancé, Nathan, waiting in the hallway with a folder of vendor quotes. This wasn't about rebuilding. This was a negotiation. I told her, you can't buy back a relationship by dangling memories and asking for money. Come to me when you want a father, not a wallet. She left in tears. Nathan mouthed, I'm sorry, before following her. By the time the big week rolled around, the cracks were showing. Sophie had downgraded venues twice, switched caterers to a budget option, and cut her guest list. Linda was furious, yelling at Gerald daily, blaming me for refusing to step up. Gerald finally snapped, according to what I heard later. I never signed up to be her financial savior. I was just trying to be a good stepdad. Stop acting like I'm a millionaire, ouch. The night before the wedding, Sophie called me one last time, voice hoarse clearly from crying. Dad, please, if you ever loved me, help me. Just sell the car, please. I'll pay you back one day, I told her gently. Sophie, I do love you, but love isn't measured in dollars. I won't sell the one thing that symbolizes my freedom just so you can throw a party. If you want a marriage, focus on the man you're marrying, not the flowers and the fireworks. Click. I didn't attend. I wasn't invited anyway, except through family guilt trips. I spent the day polishing the Rolls and taking Patricia, my girlfriend, for a drive up the coast. But family gossip travels fast. Apparently, Sophie walked down the aisle on Gerald's arm, looking radiant but tense. The wedding was nice, but nowhere near the fairy tale she wanted. Half the guests whispered about the missing father drama, and Linda looked like she was sucking on a lemon all night. The funniest part? Gerald's speech. He toasted Sophie and Nathan, then said, being a stepdad is an honor, but it's also a responsibility I never wanted to overshadow anyone else in. Sophie, I hope one day you realize how many people truly love you, even the ones you pushed away. The room went dead quiet. 2 weeks later, Sophie called me again. This time, no screaming, no begging, just silence at first. Then, Dad, Gerald's not talking to me anymore. He says I used him. Nathan's stressed about our finances. I don't know what to do, I sighed. Sophie, I've been telling you this for years. Relationships aren't about using people. They're about respect. If you keep treating fathers like ATMs, eventually both of them close their doors. She sniffled. So what now? That's up to you. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with respect. Not money, not conditions. Just respect. She didn't respond. It's been a month since the wedding. Sophie hasn't reached out again. I hear through the grapevine that she and Nathan are struggling financially. Student debt, wedding leftovers, and dreams bigger than their budget. Gerald's pulled back completely. Linda is furious at him now, calling him a coward. Me? I'm doing fine. Patricia and I just took the ghost on a road trip. I joined a car club, made new friends, even started dating life with a fresh sense of peace. For the first time in years, I'm not chasing after scraps of affection. Sophie might come back one day. Maybe genuinely, maybe manipulatively. If she does, I'll listen. But I won't bend my boundaries again. Because here's the truth. I spent decades proving my love. She spent years erasing it. Now, if she wants me in her life, she'll have to prove hers. And until then, I'll be behind the wheel of my Rolls, finally free.